I want to introduce today's guest, and that is Analyse. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and when you had your procedures?
I am a 40-something-year-old trans person, and I originally grew up in the Midwest and made my way to and from and to the Bay Area. And now I had my procedure probably in 2017, I think, of September. So yeah, so it's been a long journey, as I'm sure everyone else's is. So, but we made it.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. I'm glad that that you've turned that corner and moved on to bigger and better things.
Yeah, thank you.
It's really interesting how much it can change your life. And I thought it'd be helpful to sort of let people know your own transition trajectory. So like, how long were you transitioning? Where did you do this in your transition?
Good question. So I guess like a lot of people, the whole, I guess, initial thought of everything started when you're pretty young. So at least for me, it was pretty young. And then during the time I grew up, it was like, once you realize like you can't really change like anatomy, this is like, as much as like you have that imagination, then eventually it kind of settled in and never really was a thought. It's kind of one of those things like, okay, like I just need to move on and go forward. So, did some journeying, exploring, everything like that throughout my younger years. And then probably around 2013 is when like kind of the revolution and everything like that kind of started. And so I started hearing these stories and I was like, that sounds very similar to kind of how I started out, and very similar in like I had no clue what any of it was about, to be totally honest. And then the more stories I listened to, the more I realized like, wow, that's very similar how I felt, and kind of then took some time, sat with it, and really processed whether this was something that I wanted to do, but that I could do. Was I comfortable at this point going forward? So I started probably when I was 35. And so it's been about 5 years. So I probably started HRT probably like a year or so before I saw Dr. D. So it was a quick process in the, I guess, the more physical side of things. But yeah, it's been a long time coming.
And when did you go full time in that process?
Yeah, it was probably, I don't know the quite timeline. So that's the one thing that I did differently than a lot of people was, I think for, at least from what I saw, for most people, it was like, okay, today, I'm this person, tomorrow I'm that person, and I'm going forward like that. And that to me was completely scary. And I'm a very, I've got a turtle process. So I never really fully kind of took my Band-Aid off, so to speak, in one spot. It was kind of just increments of steps of me being comfortable. And it really wasn't, I mean, I guess I could have gone faster, but it was really just the process of me being comfortable with other people's reactions, whether it was good or bad. And thankfully, it's all been good. So, my worry was really nothing to be worried about. But I think definitely this helped. FFS just definitely helped with the whole thing of just kind of owning it and everything like that. So that was a huge help. But it was definitely probably a 2 or 3 year process. And so now I'm in a career, full time and everything like that. It's a position I enjoy and a company I love. And yeah, it was a process for me. I'll say that.
Well, I think everybody has their own journey, and I've always used the map analogy with the websites I have, because I think some people do want to go slowly and some people want to go more quickly, and we have to be flexible enough in our own minds to choose the path that's right for us, because this is a leap of faith. When you were concerned, would you say it was mostly about family, about work, just in general?
I guess just I guess since the kind of revelation of all of this was somewhat new to me, it was kind of how new is it to other people, and how I guess accepting are other people in general. So like, well, I had a great support system, and do have a great support system with my family and everything like that. So it was never an issue of that, but it's just, I think too, once you come out with the information, I think still there's a period, whether they accepted it before or planning on accepting it. I think just having that mark of, okay, I am directly telling you this is what's happening, doing it and going forward. I think there's always a bit of kind of a process of learning too with my mom too. So it was one of those things that she was comfortable with it. It's just kind of like, okay, gotta learn more about it. So it was kind of fun for her in some sense, because she got to learn more kind of it. And so we're still actually telling some of our family friends that we haven't, because it's just the way, kind of the speed. And my mom was very good about just, minding my process and not oversharing or anything like that, which I appreciate. So yeah, that was kind of like my worry, concern of in general. But like I say, it definitely helps having, FFS surgery. So
Well, that leads into my next question.
yeah.
So, at what point did you start to feel like that was going to be part of your transition process? Like what made you decide to get FFS?
Yeah, so it was pretty, I think like a lot of people who are intrigued or interested or feel connection to, you know, the community. It's more kind of just interest and like, okay, like what is what is the timeline for things to be happening? Because of course there's some concern and everything like that, and of course excitement, just with HRT and everything like that. And so I knew that I was on the older end of kind of all of the maturation process. So I was like, am I lost? Am I not lost? Should I, so it was kind of one of those things where I found the research to say, okay, well, you probably need to do this if you want to get to where you want to be. So it was an easy decision. Choosing the right person was kind of another battle of the part of, going about it. But honestly, I probably looked at a couple people, but I felt secure and safe with obviously Dr. D's team. Felt very like they were knowledgeable and comfortable with, obviously the surgery and everything like that. So it was an easy decision overall. And as far as where it tied into the process, I knew it was going to be a big spot to kind of take me to the next level.
Yeah, so a lot of people will probably be interested in your research itself and how you came to your decisions. So you mentioned that you were looking at a couple of people. Can you talk about how you researched, where you researched, and whether you did any other consultations?
Yeah, so can't tell you exactly the exact links I went to, but I definitely went to like Susan's message board at first, just to start, just to hear the conversation and kind of the process of other people. So that was kind of my initial step. And then since my background is in wellness, so I knew definitely coming from, a collegiate standpoint, having, some scholarly references into kind of the maturation of humans during their lifespan and when things set, when things don't set. So then looking that stuff up too, and then reading some, it's gonna sound so nerdy, some scholar journals. So definitely did that. And it was then kind of like, okay, I need, like, this is valid information. I need to consider it versus someone telling you like, hey, this is what you should do. Here's what I did. Of course, you know, it's kind of like dieting, like, you know, sometimes that's the right process for you and sometimes it's not. So that was kind of my process. I looked and talked with probably 3 or 4 different surgeons. And then I reached out to, I think, another pretty well-known guy, I forgot his name, but over in Boston too. So I knew I wanted to stay
Probably
in the
Spiegel,
country.
was it?
Yes, yes. And they got back to me, but they were obviously not as quick. And by the time they got back to me, I had already visited with the team and felt comfortable about my decision there. But yeah, that was pretty much, I wanted to stay in the country because I'd heard people like flying to Mexico or flying to Korea. And I was like, that seems kind of scary. And, you know, being in a foreign country and
Yeah, I
all the
always
surgery.
recommend staying here because if you're an American citizen, especially because if there is an issue, it's a little harder to travel. And if you do have to take legal recourse, then it's very difficult. So so I always recommend doing it here. And at this point, you know, I think there's a lot of great options. I think you happen to have chosen the best one, as did I in my time. But yeah, you know, it's I think that's very important, is to really think about where you're going as well as who you're going to. So tell us a little bit about the consultation itself.
Yeah, as far as kind of, I guess,
Yeah, like what your
interested me.
experience was and what it was like and how you felt about it.
Sure, sure. So I was a nervous wreck for sure, definitely. I think like a lot of people at that time felt kind of like you're hiding a secret, but you're kind of, you know, you're there, like almost there. So you gotta, you know, take that next step. And so really kind of divulging to strangers, so to speak, like this information that's, you know, you've held so close to your heart. And so you know, that was definitely, I remember, nerve-wracking in some sense of actually just getting to there, sitting in the waiting room and kind of just like, what's going to happen? Who am I going to meet? What are they going to be like? Kind of like your first day of school, so to speak. So it was nervous energy, but I'll say I felt reassured. Probably Amy, I forgot her last name, but she was there at the time. And she was kind of my go-to person for kind of how everything's going to operate, and as far as schedule and timeline. And so she was really good about kind of putting my questions and nerves at ease. And then the team, I had a consultation with obviously Dr. D, Dr. Jen, and another woman, and I forgot her name, but all 3 of them were there. And obviously Amy was the one that, like I say, kind of coordinated everything. So the first meeting was good. We kind of talked about kind of where I'm at and kind of where I could go. And it was overall positive. So I felt leaving that meeting very like a sense of optimism to, you know, this is going to be good. So that's kind of reassuring and positive is how I left.
Yeah, I think a lot of people go in and they see the presentation and they've had the x-rays and other things done to prepare for it. And it does, I think, feel strange, especially if you're not out or full time, or you haven't, you know, been open with a lot of people about it. How would you describe people's acceptance of you when you went in not fully to the point where you wanted to be?
Yeah, it's kind of hard because there's well, it's not hard, and it's hard at the same time for people to understand, is that I think you open your world to some people, and the people you feel safe with and you people you know, and then kind of, you know, eventually venture out to see, you know, kind of put up some people who you might be lukewarm and everything like that. So overall, the reception has been really good, even pre I guess in the back of my head too, as far as like pre-surgery was kind of like, like, oh, like, this is me and this is my own personality, but it's like, oh, like they're just saying this, and like it's going to be something that, this is going to actually really put you into that same standard as far as acceptance. Of course, acceptance comes from within. So that was kind of one of those things that I still needed, even though people were saying it and being, are my friends. It was one of those things that I still felt deep down that it was going to be something that really would, clear my nerves, and really, as far as like just interacting day to day in the public, really just kind of it will never be an issue. It will never really have that type of, like being misgendered and everything like that. So it was, reassuring is the thought I had as far as pre-surgery to eventually post.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people have that same nervousness, which is why I was asking you how you felt when you went into the office, and if you felt like people were accepting and sort of presenting, allowing you to present in a way that you felt comfortable answering your questions and all of that. So, so help us figure out like your schedule. So you had the consultation. How long in advance did you book the consultation, and then how long was it until you actually had the surgery?
Yeah, it was actually a pretty quick turnaround. So I had my surgery in September, yes, over Labor Day. So that of 2017, and I went in for my consultation in like mid-June. So it was a pretty quick turnaround, but I was pretty sure, like the conversation we had initially with it was like, I'm sure this is what I want to do as far as surgery. Finding the right person and going with it is really the big step in to getting me to the procedure and everything like that. So I was confident that this was something that I was going to do.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are curious about payment. So if you don't mind my asking, can you tell us how you paid for it and what that process was?
Yeah, so my payments were it's pretty cut and dry, but I'll have to say, I guess when you're at this age of kind of being established with your career and having, financial income and everything like that, that you've saved, hopefully, then it definitely helps to have that. And that's something that I had. I also, one of my grandparents had passed away and left us some money. So ended up using some stocks and everything like that to pay in full. So mine might be unique in that it was kind of like, okay, I just want to pay this. I don't like having credit or loans and everything like that. So I wanted to pay in full the first one and then just not have to worry about it, because it's one less thing to worry about post surgery. So
yeah, I did it with credit, and I did it in 2 different pieces because I couldn't get enough credit to do all of it at once. And I was paying for it for quite a long time. So I think if you're paying out of pocket, as I did and as you did, there are certainly benefits to saving up and then doing it, but you have to weigh that with, going full time sooner as well. And that sometimes can't wait and is worth the extra cost, as it was in my case.
For sure. Yeah, I've got another friend who is doing her surgery through Kaiser, and so, but she spent a bajillion dollars, not bajillion, but a lot of money in this whole process for her, and she knows she's going to come out with a lot of debt, but it's a process that is worth it. So, in all actuality, it's not debt. It's something that's meaningful.
Yeah, I still say that the work that I had done is the best investment I've ever made myself, because people see it every single day, and I interact with people all the time. And so it's paid off every day since I've had it. And so if you think of it that way, then it may be worth, taking on a little extra debt, or scrimping and saving for a few years in order to cover it, even though it is out of pocket.
Mhm.
So tell us what all you had done and what it was like when you got to the hospital through like the first few days.
Oh man. So I think I had the full, enchilada, so to speak. I think, yeah, I think I did everything here. So chin jaw, forehead.
Did you do
uh,
trachea?
no, that was the one good thing. I was like, oh, okay, didn't have that. I think it might have been chin, jaw, forehead, nose. Sorry, those were the big ones for me. So
And did
yeah,
you
that
have a
was
hairline issue that was corrected, or was that okay?
yes. I think so. Yeah. So they took like moved my hair or skin
Yeah, I mean, they
something
moved
or
mine down like about this much. It was pretty impressive. So,
yeah, okay, so I think I had that too. Yeah.
and tell, just because a lot of people haven't had major surgery before when they come in for this, can you sort of describe what it's like to arrive and go through the procedure and then through the recovery?
Yeah. So on the day of surgery, obviously, pretty excited and nerve-wracking, of course. And I ended up taking Uber to it. Well, yeah, Uber, and had everything ready to go. Of course, I had my backup, or not backup, but emergency contacts and contacts for post surgery and everything like that ready to go. But the day of the surgery, I was in a different hospital, and I think it was it's kind of it was interesting. I was in the basement of one of them, and it was not my ideal place, but we're here, we're doing it. Nervous, but the nurses were good. They were very nice, and everyone was reassuring on whether I'd seen them before or they're somebody new. Reassured that it was going to be a good thing. So Dr. D came in. He was cool, calm, ready to get to business, and he definitely confident, which of course puts your nerves, at ease too, that, things are going to go well. Shada was there too. And so I was excited. She was another person that I built a relationship with, and she's, got a great, reassurance and everything like that. And so I felt very comfortable on the table before. And then the anesthesiologist was good too. So simply counting back from 5 and eventually waking up, being put into a room. And the first night was, I don't know if you really remember it, but it was a lot, in sense that you've got stuff on you, you've got like pipes stuck in you, and you're a bit wondering how you're going to move and everything like that. But then we had my apologies, I forgot her name, but she had come in and she was like the night nurse, so to speak, from the office, or the office had put her in there. And she was great. I definitely had dry mouth and everything like that, so she fed me water. And we walked around. That was one thing that was important, is to get some exercise, get things circulating. So we did a couple
Yeah,
laps and
that's one of the things that Dr. D does differently than when I did it, is that he tries to get people up and walking as quickly as possible, because he feels that it gets the anesthesia out of your body and it helps reduce swelling. So how are you feeling? Were you in pain, or was it just what was your sensation?
yeah, I think I was still doped up on a lot of the painkillers, so I didn't feel a whole lot. But I felt good. I mean, I knew overall, again, I think you're excited and really optimistic, and people telling you, that was the other thing too. People were like even nurses were like, "Oh, you look so great." And of course, I look, blood's running down and you got swelling all over the place. And so when you get home, you realize what you really look like. But they were really good and really assuring. So that made me feel good. Which then also made me feel good about just walking around and taking those laps and everything like that. Because I didn't want to obviously freak anybody out, of course, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning and this person's rolling around. So I was like, just as long as no one, has any issue with it, then that's what I want to do. But I made an effort too. So my background is in kinesiology. So like health and wellness is important. So I knew that kind of getting moving and like you had said, pushing out some swelling, pushing some anesthesia, and anyway, some of the medicine to get it through your system. And that did help, I think, even when eventually when you go back to your home or place where you're going to be recovering.
So let's talk a little bit about that recovery. So can you tell us about the first few weeks and what you noticed and what you felt?
Yeah, pain in the sense that, once, you're away from the hospital, the first day, 24 hours, 48 hours, I think that's when things start to kind of wear off as far as kind of pain management, but it's not like excruciating pain or anything like that. It's just discomfort, I should say. That's really what it is. And then I think I was still sleepy after maybe 24 hours, 48 hours. So I slept a lot, but forcing yourself to get up and do a lot of the things, so I did some walking around. I think we did some like modest jaw opening and closing, just whatever you can, don't force it. And then of course, cleaning the sutures, cleaning your inside of your mouth. I think the process has changed since I did it, but I think it was like hydrogen peroxide, like a third, and then water, and then like your mouth just starts burning. It's like, oh, this sucks. So that doesn't feel good, but it's
there's a lot of weird feelings with all of this, that's for sure. Like I remember the way Dr. O used to do it. He would put a bunch of packing in your sinuses, and
Okay.
So it was very strange when they took that out. It's like one of those magic tricks.
Yeah, that was so odd too. So with Dr. D, that happened to me too, but I think we left those in for the first week or two, and then I went up
and everything.
Yeah, and then I went up and like started to pull them out, and then the final, or maybe like 5 days later, we pulled out the bags and everything like that from my throat that were draining, and then also one more, I think the kind of stent or cast in there too.
Right.
So you're like pulling your brain out. It's like, oh.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird feeling.
Yeah.
So how long was it before you noticed sort of the differences? Like when did you start to see real change?
Yeah, probably around week 3 or so. And maybe I was kind of, of course, like you want it to be there too. So, but I'm pretty sure it was week 3 as far as like, kind of what you're looking like. You still got swelling on your face, and things are still healing, but you kind of see probably 70% of what you'll be, eventually once everything's recovered. And then,
and when did you go back to work?
Yeah, I went back to work probably around week 2, after week 2. So 2-week recovery and back to work. I was still doing, I think I had all my stitches out. Yes. Nose thing was out. And then, everything else primarily was just management. So I think I was still at night wearing like the compression thing to put over your head, still sleeping with your head, above your heart. I think that was for like 4 weeks. Can't remember, but that part I will have to say too kind of sucked. Get used to, people who want to get used to sleeping upright, because I'm a stomach sleeper. So I was like, oh, this sucks, I can't fall asleep. So that was a little bit of my discomfort.
So so when you went back to work, did you still have bruising and swelling that you were concerned about, that people were talking about, or was there any issue with going back that soon?
Yeah, no one said anything. Of course, I mean, everyone's really nice on my work, so I don't think they would necessarily, but you've got those true friends who are like, hey, you've got something on your face, or, like do something. Overall, it was good. I think I had some swelling still, like around this area.
Yeah, this
Um,
tends to take a little longer for the swelling to go down.
Yeah, so that one was a little, but it wasn't overall noticeable. And if I wanted to put makeup on and cover it up, I could, and it would totally be covered up. Yeah, I was just, I guess for me personally, I was always going back and checking my nose and making sure that, it was still on straight. So
Yeah,
that was
that is a funny thing because you get told, oh, be careful about your nose. And so you start to worry a
yeah.
little bit about it.
Yeah. So that was like my biggest thing. Like, because I had previously to that, I probably broken my nose like 3 times just randomly. So I was like, okay, you've got something that is very meaningful. Do not break it again.
Right. So, so overall, like, how would you say facial feminization has changed your life?
All for the better. Definitely, specifically with Dr. D, I think I wouldn't have ever gone anywhere else. And knowing that I went there comparatively now, retro to like other people that are, whether they've been in the game and they're not just now like more advertising, or people who are starting new. I think he's like, yeah, like everyone says, he's the best. So that made my decision, just that much more instilled in me. And yeah, it's completely changed. Like I say, I think a lot of the worry you have when you initially start your journey and everything like that, um, a lot of things are visual that you're worried about. And this is obviously, something that's visual right in there for everyone. So uh, it was an easy decision for me to do. Like you had said, the investment it's well worth it. I you know I If I were to do it today again, I would still do it. If I needed to do it again today, I would still do it again today. It's just I feel very confident and comfortable, with Dr. D and his team. And like I say, it was, yeah, life changing.
Yeah, and I think there's a little bit of mystery around Dr. D, like I don't think people know what he's like. So how would you describe what Dr. D is like?
I don't, I guess, I mean, I only see him for my annual, or every so often, especially with COVID and everything like that. But I would say he's extremely nice. You can tell he wants to make you feel comfortable. So there's that kind of caring aspect of just being very kind and delicate with you, whether it's how he speaks or what the topic's about. He's very good about reassuring and making you feel comfortable. But I'll have to say, I think, I don't know if this is how you want me to say this, but I don't know. I enjoyed his nerdy side. So it was very much like, he's like, oh, like, you're off like a couple millimeters here, or we could do this by, and it's just, I think I get a kick out of that. Plus it's kind of reassuring, so to speak, because it's like, oh, here's a man that is very, keen on his craft and wants to get it right. And so that made me feel good. But I also like nerd, so it was a good thing.
Yeah, he does have this certain enthusiasm that can seem a little focused and nerdy. Yes,
Yeah,
it's quite charming, I think. But,
yeah, it is.
well, cool. So, if you had advice for someone else who was considering facial feminization, what would that advice be? Like what in however you want to interpret that question.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I thought about this too. I guess if you are, well, if you're in that stage, especially like myself, where, for the most part, your anatomy has been pretty set in, and, it's the path you're on, you can't change it. But as far as those that have the luxury of kind of going from their teenage years or possibly even their early 20s and having that transformation, you can still get it. And it's just a matter of finding the right surgeon and getting the procedure, accomplished. And once that happens, you're pretty much on the same path as the person who may have started that earlier, but you've got more, you're established more, and you've got, a better understanding of what the world is and who you are in the world. So that's another great thing. I think I already knew who I was, so to speak. So this was kind of just the final touch and a big piece, of course, but really it was a no-brainer for me.
Well, I think that that'll be very helpful. Yeah, this has been really wonderful to chat with you today. I really appreciate your taking the time to help other people make a more informed decision, because that's how I've been trying to operate for all these years, is helping other people pay it forward and share their wisdom and their experiences, so that the next person can do a little better and have a little bit easier time. So I'm grateful that you took some time to be part of that.
Same. I have heard and seen stories of you with Dr. D and everything like that. So getting to meet you obviously is all my pleasure. And anytime I with this whole kind of process of really reaching out and being resources for people that are in our community, it makes the decision to help out very easy.